Number 10. Static. Originally hailing from the Dakotaverse of the DC multiverse, Static, or Virgil Hawkins, has a unique set of powers for a street-level teenage superhero. Static's powers allow him to control all sorts of electromagnetic phenomena. Beyond the ability to generate electricity for a variety of effects, he can also magnetize objects and cause people or objects to stick to one another through a strong static cling. He hasn't fully realized the extent of these abilities, and maybe when he does, he will ascend, but for now this teenager uses his abilities to fight for his friends and family and be a force for good in this world and his local community in Dakota City, while also juggling school, bullies, and family finances. Okay, before we carry on, I found this list really hard to order. Some characters have more impressive powers but lack resources that others on this list have. So my question to you guys is, what do you think dictates a hero's level of power? Is it who would win in a fistfight, or is it about who could take on more severe threats? Let me know your thoughts in the comments and I'll carry on with this video. Number 9. Black Canary. Dina Laurel Lance, or Black Canary, certainly has the capability to be beyond street level. Her superpower, the Canary Cry, is lethal to anyone who isn't superpowered enough to take it on, meaning that when she is fighting common thugs and hoodlums, she usually relies on her incredible skills in hand-to-hand combat that rivals even that of Batman. She has used her skills as an important member of the Justice League, but also alongside her boyfriend, husband, and eventual ex-husband, Green Arrow in Star City. Number 8. Moon Knight. Moon Knight is a reliable and diligent hero when it comes to protecting the innocent, especially at night. Moon Knight more often than not explores the traumatized complexity of Mark Spector's dissociative identity disorder, while, just like the show, definitely being quite trippy and supernatural. He is one of Marvel's grittier heroes, more willing to take a punch as punishment than try to avoid it, but his stories often deal with his journey and healing and introspection. Some of his best comic book moments come in Jeff Lemire and Greg Smallwood's run on the character, so definitely check that out. And Oscar Isaac's portrayal in the MCU is an awesome take on the character, while definitely showing a bit more of a globe-trotting side to the character than his street-level crime fighting would normally portray. Number 7. Daredevil. Daredevil has been one character in comics who has been time and time again so damn well written. The Man Without Fear has had a hard-hitting list of absolutely excellent writers like Frank Miller, Ann Nocenti, Brian Bendis, Mark Waid, current writer Chip Zdarsky, and so many more. His stories explore the conflicted morals of a lawyer by day and street vigilante by night, not to mention his Catholic upbringing. Matt Murdock's stories make readers feel the weight of a man being pulled in multiple directions at once, and the Netflix Daredevil series does an excellent job of making you feel that way as well. With the disability of being blind combined with his superhuman senses and the passion with which he protects his city, Daredevil ultimately makes for one of Marvel's most grounded heroes. Number 6. Luke Cage. Even though his powers could land him easily above a street-level capacity, Luke Cage respects the importance of communities and nurturing good environments for kids to thrive in. Not only will you see Luke cleaning the streets with his powers, you'll see him actively encouraging and bettering the neighborhoods he deals with. Alongside Iron Fist as the heroes for hire, they make sure to give back to the community whenever they can. He doesn't give up on people, and he's active in rehabilitation and re-education initiatives. Due to his work helping reform criminals, he oversaw the Thunderbolts for a time, helping supervillains become heroes. Number 5. Jessica Jones. After her family's vehicle collided with a truck of unknown chemicals, and after being in a coma for quite some time, Jessica Jones awoke with impressive levels of super strength and durability, a hell of a healing factor, the power to fly, which took some time to master, and superhuman longevity. So yeah, she can easily go up and fight with the big dogs. Very easily, in fact. But that ain't her calling. Jessica has done a great job battling her own inner demons, trying to become a better person and hero. Her bond with Luke Cage elevated not only her self-confidence, but made both partners better by association. Using her private investigator skill set, she's one hell of a vigilante and a very resourceful mother that could easily put your face in the pavement if you decide to threaten the community. Number 4. Iron Fist. With the resources of a Tony Stark playboy and access to the mystical realms and knowledge in the same class as Doctor Strange, Iron Fist is a character that doesn't always seem like he would be duking it out with gangsters and street thugs. But that's probably what makes him so great. Iron Fist doesn't let his privileges and skill sets stop him from being involved in the local communities that he cares deeply for. He's done a lot of good work for the streets of New York alongside his best friend Luke Cage, who, as we've already mentioned, can also be fighting much bigger threats if he chooses to. Though New York is never polished and squeaky clean, not by a long shot, helping make it a better place certainly can't be harder than slaying an ancient dragon. Number 3. Black Panther. Thanks to the MCU, it's probably hard to see Black Panther as just a street level hero. And he isn't just that, actively joining in much bigger conflicts, but the character has had his fair share of street level conflicts, having taken Daredevil's place as the defender of Hell's Kitchen for a period of time while Matt needed to recover from the events of Shadowland, and dealing with many street level conflicts when he first appeared as Marvel's first ever black superhero. A whole whack of Black Panther's best arcs tackle social, cultural, and political themes on a level never before seen, and they are celebrated for it. As the king of an entire nation, it's easy to overlook Black Panther's capacity to care for a local community and to apprehend street criminals. But it's exactly that struggle that is a key part of his character that fans love. Number 2. Batman. Arguably one of, if not the first street level hero, Bruce Wayne has absolutely ascended beyond this with his vast resources and by being part of the Justice League. But his bread and butter is street level crime. Ever since his parents were taken from him at a young age, he was destined to dress as a giant bat and beat criminals to a pulp. But it isn't just his hand-to-hand combat that makes him such a force to be reckoned with, it's his mind. Known as one of the greatest detectives in the world, he uses his resources alongside his mind to track down perpetrators of crimes ranging from burglary to homicide. The members of his rogues gallery are all so unique and different from one another, forcing the Batman to fight his foes in all sorts of unique ways. On top of this, Bruce has mentored a rather large group of other street level heroes in the form of the Bat family, who all of which could easily be placed on this list. And number 1, Spider-Man. Other than Batman, Spider-Man is most likely to be the first character that comes to mind when you think of the most noteworthy street level heroes. But similar to Batman, Peter Parker seems to find himself jumping in status from time to time, working with the Avengers and other superhero teams to take on threats way above his pay grade. And he can do it too. That's because his powers, mind, and determination have time and time again helped the webhead to take on foes much more imposing than he is in terms of power levels. His willpower does not allow this inspiring hero to ever give up, which is one of the biggest reasons he has been a fan favorite and the face of Marvel Comics for such a long time. He is easily the peak of street level, taking on all manner of foes while being an inspiring member for the community and being a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Number 10. Rorschach. Walter Joseph Kovacs, first appearing in Watchmen #1 in September of 1986, was an incredibly violent and ruthless vigilante, not to mention extremely psychologically disturbed. His mother severely mistreated him and his father never knew his son. He grew up driven by a kind of moral absolutism that allowed no compromises, which when translated to his vigilanteism led him to dispatch anyone he saw fit as deserving justice. Almost like Punisher, but this style of crime fighting also applied to those who stood in his way. When superheroes were outlawed, he went undercover and continued illegally, even teaming up with Night Owl, who brought tech which really complemented Rorschach's investigating skill set. Together, the two stopped many serial criminals. Unfortunately though, Rorschach was dispatched by Dr. Manhattan in order to protect a terrible secret that could end the world. But his legacy lives on in the second Rorschach, Reggie Long, so we're good. Number 9. Hawkeye. Despite Hawkeye, Clint Barton, being one of the Avengers and an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., he has a strong reputation in the source material as a street level hero at times, with adventures that have made for some of Marvel's more personal stories, especially with writers like Matt Fraction, who made the character's probably greatest run. It tells an intimate story of how Clint Barton lives his life when he isn't really in the glamour of Avengers level status. Because let's be honest here, Clint Barton is a very underrated Avenger, and it's understandable why. He is a guy with a bow and arrow. An extremely dangerous guy, but you put him next to an Asgardian god or like a Hulk, who he technically is taken out, although emphasis on the technically, and yeah, he doesn't look that impressive, but trust me, there's a reason he is on the Avengers. Is Hawkeye a street level hero? I saw a lot of people mention Captain America in the comments of the last video, and I debated it for a while, but I simply don't think he is one. Is a character still street level even if they participate in global threats? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Number 8. Hellcat. During her formative years, Patsy Walker's fame-obsessed mother, Dorothy, would use her daughter as a way to make a buck, usually while also living vicariously through Patsy and constantly disapproving of her tomboy nature. Dorothy would pressure her daughter into modeling, which she didn't want to do, so when that didn't work out, due to Patsy's own lack of interest and commitment, Dorothy started a comic book containing fictionalized romantic adventures of her daughter as a teenager. This gave Patsy Walker some notoriety before she finally joined up with the heroes that she actually idolized, which is honestly a kind of hilarious story. Basically, using manipulation tactics learned from her mother, Patsy blackmailed the mutant Hank McCoy, or Beast, into helping her transform into a superhero. Patsy tracked down Beast while he was an Avenger and forced him to allow her to accompany them on a mission. And during the Avengers ride-along, quote unquote, Patsy found an old costume that once belonged to Greer Nelson, who became Tigra, during her early days as the Cat. Patsy took the gear for herself and assumed the identity Hellcat. Now thanks to this suit, plus her natural ability, plus experience over time with training from Moondragon and her husband Damon Hellstrom, Hellcat has become a force to be reckoned with. I just kinda hope she shows up in She-Hulk, but probably not. Number 7. Punisher. Yes, Punisher. Some of you were a little upset that he didn't make the last video, and honestly, it's just because when we're talking about power, there are those that stand above him. Also, I had to include other publishers than just Marvel. But despite being a normal man, Frank Castle's sheer willpower and tactical ability absolutely deserves him a spot on this list, not to mention his seeming unwavering morals. Punisher isn't the type of person anyone should really emulate. He is incredibly dark and incredibly ruthless, and he is an awesome character, and his stories are about as gritty and street feeling as you could probably get, especially the Punisher Max series, which if you are above a certain age, I highly suggest you check it out. Since the passing of his family at the hands of the mob, he has devoted his life to the task of destroying organized crime wherever he finds it. He teams up with many heroes in their objectives, which almost always fall in line with his, but these other heroes a lot of the time come into conflict with him over his way of dealing with crime. Nonetheless, dope character, 100% deserves to be here. Number 6. Nighthawk. Okay, everybody hold on to your butts. I may get a few things wrong here, as Nighthawk was not a character I was familiar with up until this point. So, the very first incarnation of the character to appear in comics was in 1969's Avengers 69, as part of the Squadron Sinister. The Squadron Sinister was actually created by the Grand Master in the image of the heroes of Earth 712, the Squadron Supreme. So the Squadron Supreme was basically Marvel's version of DC's Justice League, with Nighthawk as a kind of parody or homage to Batman. On both Earths 712 and 616, Nighthawk is Kyle Richmond, but on 712, the original or real Nighthawk was a multi-billionaire whose riches were built through his father's criminal enterprises, leading him to choose to use the money for good instead of evil. The 616 version of Nighthawk eventually turned his back on the rest of the Squadron Sinister and on villainy altogether, joining the Defenders as a longtime member in the 70s until his apparent passing. But he's since returned to life, even training a successor named Joaquin Pennyworth before retiring. Due to a potion, Nighthawk possesses various superhuman physical attributes such as strength, stamina, durability, agility, reflexes, and senses due to the unique nature of the potion, though all of his superhuman attributes are doubled at night. Number 5. Azrael. John Paul Valley was an agent of the Sacred Order of St. Dumas. This secret and sacred order created a hero and protector of their secrets known as Azrael. This hero was actually like a legacy type of situation, with generation after generation being brainwashed and manipulated from before birth to believe they were the Angel of Vengeance. John Paul broke this though when he decided to ally himself with Batman after Bruce taught him the errors of his ways. John Paul has gone on to be Batman for a short period of time, and he remained a vigilante for the most part after, although he is a wee bit violent here and there. Just a smidge. His skills were honed by training with Bruce Wayne, and he is thus possibly as skilled as Batman, although his lack of experience and lack of finesse kinda makes him the weaker of the two. However, due to his physical capabilities as a result of genetic engineering, he has greater strength, reflexes, and speed than a normal peak level human, which, in conjunction with his trained skills, has allowed him to defeat Batman, Bane, Nightwing, and even be offered leadership in the League of Assassins by Ra's al Ghul. Number 4, Spider-Woman. Okay, I actually kind of feel like Jessica Drew is a bit above street level, as she has gone off with the Avengers fighting all kinds of villains, been de-lifed and re-lifed, and not to mention the whole Spider-Verse thing where she found crucial information that led to the Spider Army defeating the Inheritors. But after that, Jessica Drew quit the Avengers and started working as a private investigator alongside Jessica Jones. During this career, she came into conflict and an eventual teacher-slash-student dynamic with low-level villain the Porcupine after dealing with a whole thing with his wife and some kidnapped people. It was a lot. She also routinely interacted with reporter Ben Ulrich and continued this work for a while to support her newly born son. But then again, she's also fought Skrulls, been a member of Strikeforce, and also became a Kree accuser after that point, so I don't know. You decide. Spider-Woman, street level, or much more powerful. Number 3, Nightwing. Yes. Of all the members of the Bat family, Dick Grayson was not only the very first, but for a lot of people, including me, he is the favorite. Born to a family of acrobats, orphaned, and then taken in by Bruce Wayne, Dick became the very first Robin, appearing in Detective Comics number 38 in 1940, created by Bob Kane and Bill Finger, and illustrated by Jerry Robinson. As you can imagine, he has a long history, and as such, a large amount of experience and proficiency. He was the leader of the Teen Titans for a while, and when his Robin career comes to an end, he becomes Nightwing to honor another hero by the same name after being told the story of the Kryptonian hero by Superman. He has gone on to take the Batman mantle a couple of times, but honestly, it was in 1995 and 1996 when he received his own stories that he really became his own. To set Nightwing apart from Batman, he was given his own city, the decaying harbor town known as Bloodhaven, which was just north of Gotham. For that reason, it allowed him to be close enough to Gotham to stay part of the Bat family, as well as have his own city and series of adventures, and man, it's one of the better street crime fighting stories in my opinion. You should definitely check it out. Number 2, Elektra. Over time, Elektra has become increasingly more and more important in the comics, and specifically to the Daredevil corner of the Marvel Universe, especially considering she has recently taken on the mantle herself. Elektra first started out as a mysterious and romantic figure of Matt Murdock's past. She's been gradually written more and more into an exciting character with interesting motivations. She's been trained in martial arts from the age of 10, being trained by Stick, who gave up on her, and the organization known as the Hand. Elektra's anti-hero vibes and her dynamic with Daredevil is awesome. Definitely feels like a very similar thing to Catwoman and Batman actually. Current Daredevil writer Chip Zdarsky has written her as another Daredevil by honoring the mantle's symbolism while still giving her meaningful new moral challenges to face while donning that mantle. Also, she has actual powers now, including Assassin's Instinct and Mind Switch thanks to her resurrection. But yes, Elektra, dope as heck. Number 1, Cassandra Cain. There are many members of the Bat family who could all take up spots on a list such as this. For part 1, we only talked about Batman, but for part 2, I'm talking about my 3 favorite Bat family members, and Cassandra Cain is definitely the number 1. As the daughter of 2 incredibly capable assassins, David Cain and Lady Shiva, Cassandra has grown up being trained by her father in isolation and with nonverbal communication for the same kind of life. Thanks to that, Cassandra has superb body reading abilities and has made fighting her quote-unquote mother tongue, being better than even Batman. However, this upbringing has also rendered her dyslexic and with speech impediments when she did learn how to speak. After seeing a man she took down pass away at a rather young age, it changed her perspective on things and she turned her back on her parents. She eventually became a member of the Bat family as the 4th Batgirl, and then moving on to become Black Bat and then Orphan. Also, her new 52 costume is sick.
Number 10, Daredevil. First appearing in his own comic in 1964, Matt Murdock has been on the beat as long as any of them. His father was a boxer who raised Matt alone and wanted his son to be successful, pushing him to become educated and setting him on the path to becoming a lawyer. One day, a truck crash results in a radioactive isotope splashing out into his eyes, blinding him. He awoke in the hospital to find all his other senses were now amplified to a superhuman degree. Daredevil is a great street level hero, striking an awesome balance by kicking butt on the streets and in the courtroom. Narratively, it also makes for some great storytelling opportunities. We all love a little courtroom drama. Sometimes called the man without fear, Daredevil is able to detach from emotions like fear in a way that is almost sociopathic. He can detect minute changes in the temperature and air around him, and also benefits from superhuman agility, enhanced endurance, and peak human speed. There are many testaments to Daredevil's power. He has an extremely high pain tolerance and an indomitable will, making him immune to telepathy and mind control. Hey Nerd Squad, if you like this video and you'd like to see some more, take a second to hit that like button and activate those notifications. Number 9. Moon Knight, also known as Mark Spector. He was left for dead on a mercenary mission in Egypt, where he was spared by the moon god Khonshu, who saved him and gave him moon-based superpowers. He fights crime in the US and lives a life of multiple identities, most notably Stephen Grant, the financier, and Jake Lockley, a cab driver persona he uses to collect information. It doesn't get any more street level than that. His childhood trauma mixed in with the multiple personas causes him some serious troubles, but Moon Knight is still a powerful street level Marvel hero. He is arguably a bit higher than street level, but he still has a serious penchant for fighting crime in the streets. He is a master marksman, weapons expert, master martial artist, including former boxing champion, and much more. He's even gone toe-to-toe with the Punisher in the past, and it's been said that Moon Knight suffers from a madness so powerful it can only be described as magic. Number 8. Jessica Jones. Jessica was in a car accident as a child and spent months in a coma. During the crash, her family was killed and she was exposed to radioactive chemicals. She gains powers after her coma, including strength, durability, and flight. She's been a superhero, a detective, and a vigilante. She just can't get enough of kicking the crap out of criminals. She has a storied street level past, fighting alongside heroes like Luke Cage, Captain Marvel, and Daredevil. Jessica is a cool, grounded type of hero, but is still seriously powerful. On top of the basic stuff, she also has accelerated healing, superhuman longevity, and telepathic resistance. Number 7. Iron Fist. Danny Rand was the son of a wealthy businessman named Wendell Rand. He seems like a normal dude who gets married and has a son named Danny, but he's actually from the city of the immortals, Kunlun. He was driven out by his brother when the two were quarreling over a woman's love, but later in life he seeks to return. When he does return, his son Danny comes along with him, and after his father dies, Danny is trained by Lei Kung, the Thunderer. After years of intense martial arts training, Danny earns the chance to gain the power of the Iron Fist. He battles to prove himself, fighting against a giant fire-breathing serpent guarding a brazier containing its heart. And upon his victory, he picks up the heart and is imbued with the quasi-mystical force known as the Iron Fist. He returns to America to take vengeance for his father's death, and has been pounding the pavement ever since. He is already a highly trained and extremely powerful warrior, but by harnessing and summoning the spiritual energy or Chi, he reaches superhuman levels of power. Not only does he benefit from Chi enhanced durability, reflexes, and so on, but he also has some unique powers you might not know of. He is capable of mind meld, using his power to fuse consciousness with another person. He can channel Chi energy to heal himself or others, and uses Chi enhanced senses to strike specific pressure points with pinpoint accuracy. He is exceptionally powerful, and through ongoing training and study of the Book of the Iron Fist, it's possible that he could become even stronger. Number 6. Elektra. First appearing in Daredevil number 168 in 1981, Elektra was born on a Greek island and lost her mother when enemies of her father shot up the family's yacht. She grew close to her father but suffered from visions and heard voices. Eventually, her father puts her into therapy where she gains some stability, later training and excelling in martial arts. They come to America, where her father is a Greek ambassador to the US, and she attends Columbia University. She has a couple of exciting run-ins with Daredevil, and eventually the two fall in love and start training together. She has had a bit of a back and forth and been a little evil at times, but she's done a fair bit of crime fighting and is a very skilled assassin. She has the uncanny ability to throw her mind into the minds of others, sniffing them out, so to speak. She has demonstrated telekinetic abilities in the past, including telepathic communication. She has a mind shield as well to keep herself hidden from other telepaths. She might not have the usual super strength and durability, but she is a master of stealth, weapons, and marksmanship. Number 5. The Punisher. Frank Castle first appeared in 1974 and quickly became everyone's favorite badass. An Italian-American and decorated former US Marine, you don't want to be on this guy's bad side. When his wife and children are gunned down by the Mafia for witnessing a hit, he becomes a vigilante dedicated to destroying organized crime. Rich criminals may laugh at the law and bend it to their will, but they don't laugh at the Punisher. Frank Castle makes a serious vigilante, using combat experience, guerrilla warfare, and detective skills to track down and execute his targets. He's had an uneasy alliance with Spider-Man in the past, and once butted heads with Daredevil. He is in peak physical condition, a seasoned veteran in multiple forms of combat. He's an interrogation master, an expert pilot, and has an indomitable will, having even resisted telepathic control in the past. He has an incredible arsenal of weapons and equipment. I could literally do an entire video on the Punisher's various weapons and technology. Fun fact, the Punisher is actually based on a character called the Executioner, who is in a series of novels from 1969. Number 4. Luke Cage. Born and raised in Harlem, New York City, Luke spent his life causing trouble and eventually joining a gang. When one of his old buddies plants drugs in his home and tips off the police, he winds up sent to jail, and while in prison is consumed by hatred and rage. He spends his time getting into brawls and attempting to escape for the most part. When Dr. Noah Burstein is using inmates at the prison as test subjects, Luke is selected and immersed in an electro-biochemical system. The system gets tampered with and overloads, enhancing Luke's entire body and giving him unbreakable skin and super strength. He uses these abilities to escape from prison and return to Harlem, designing a costume and becoming a hero for hire, the title of the comic he premieres in. He is seriously powerful, eventually becoming strong enough to lift 50 tons. With a body as hard as titanium, he is also resistant to bullets, explosions, or falls from extreme height. Number 3. Ghost Rider. Johnny Blaze is super hardcore and largely underrated, likely due to how over the top the character is. The son of a famous stuntman, Johnny made a deal with a demon and now has the power to control hellfire and revenge upon evildoers with his signature pen and stare. Ghost Rider has been around, once working alongside Black Widow and Hercules and becoming a team known as the Champions. In human form, Johnny has no special powers really, but as Ghost Rider, he is supernaturally enhanced to a ridiculous level. Ghosty has some superhuman strength, stamina, and can regenerate near instantaneously. The Hulk once shattered his skull with a punch, and the Rider just grew a new one instantly. He can look into souls and eat the sins of degenerates, leaving them emotionless. He can identify supernatural forces around him and can manipulate hellfire in numerous ways. He wields a mystic chain capable of changing length and cutting through anything, and sometimes also wields the Hellfire shotgun. Ghost Rider has some pretty crazy, epic demon stuff going on with his storylines, but being a biker, his home is still the streets. Number 2. She-Hulk. She-Hulk has some things in common with some others on this list. She's a lawyer like Daredevil, but was also shot by a mobster in the event that turned her into She-Hulk, sorta like Frank Castle's origin. Being a Hulk, it goes without saying that Jennifer Walters is a powerhouse of a superhero. Although she does take part in the Secret Wars in 1984 and gets involved with the Avengers, she also has worked with the heroes for hire and spends plenty of time on the streets fighting crime. Her Hulk form has the proportionate strength of her human body, meaning as she continues to improve her physique, her Hulk form also becomes more powerful. She benefits from superhuman everything. Durability, speed, you name it. She-Hulk also has full control over her transformations, unlike Bruce Banner, but the upper limit of her strength is not as high. She is still, however, powerful enough to effortlessly lift the Thing with one arm. And here we are at number 1. Spider-Man. Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man is a fan favorite, webbing up criminals and leaving them for the cops to pick up. He won't kill people, but he will sling a sewer grate or a mailbox directly at your head. The death of his Uncle Ben teaches Spider-Man that his power comes with responsibility, and he is undoubtedly one of the most powerful street-level heroes. He handles the responsibility well, going up against some serious dudes and never giving up. Spider-Man is loved by many, but the actual limits of his power are largely unexplored. It's been said that Spider-Man has to pull his punches, as his super strength would splatter goons all over the wall if he didn't ease up on them. He has an indomitable will with incredible pain tolerance. He can lift up to 10 tons, an amount that has actually increased since it was originally stated. Spidey has a gifted intellect and is a master hand-to-hand fighter, having trained with Captain America in the past. He also greatly benefits from his spider sense, alerting him to danger in a way that, combined with his agility, makes him incredibly difficult to even land a hit on. Number 10. Gambit. Also known as Remy LeBeau, he was born with burning red eyes and was kidnapped from the hospital by members of the Thieves Guild of New Orleans. Later, he's adopted by their leader. Hoping to strike an alliance with the Assassins Guild, They set Gambit up in an arranged marriage, which falls through when the bride's brother challenges him to a duel. He kills the brother and is banished from New Orleans in an attempt to maintain the alliance. He wanders the world, using his thief skills and mutant powers to charge objects with energy and get into all kinds of trouble. Gambit has a multitude of abilities, including molecular acceleration, which allows him to charge items with energy, usually playing cards. His energy and vibration-based abilities allow for accelerated regeneration and enhanced conditioning. He's not the most powerful hero, but he would definitely beat you in a game of Street Dice. Hey, before I reveal my next pick, I'd like to remind you guys to smash that like button. It's okay if you don't, but if you enjoy the video and you don't press it, that would be kind of weird. Number 9. Blade. First appearing in The Tomb of Dracula in 1973, Eric Brooks was born in a horror movie scene. A vampire doctor feasted on his mother as she gave birth, passing on tainted enzymes that caused Eric to become a half vampire, with a whole host of vampire abilities, but none of the usual weaknesses. After his mother's death, he was raised at Madame Vanity's brothel, later meeting Jamal Afari and becoming his student, learning all there is to know about fighting and killing vampires. He fashioned himself into a vampire hunter and named himself Blade. He has sharp vampire teeth, casts no reflection, and he's an exceptional fighter, having been affiliated with many teams of heroes in the past. In his big debut, he went up against Dracula, later taking on Doppelganger and at one point joining the Night Stalkers. He has superhuman senses, strength, and speed. He's a master martial artist and weapons expert with a regenerative healing factor and immunity to the usual vulnerabilities vampires have, making him a real threat to go up against. He doesn't turn into a swarm of bats and fly around though. That would be pretty cool. Number 8. Misty Knight. Nicknamed Misty, Mercedes Knight is a human cyborg hero and leader of the Defenders. Danny Rand, aka Iron Fist, is her ex-fiance. She was a police officer who lost her arm in a bombing and caught Tony Stark's attention. Tony built her a bionic arm and she quit the NYPD after being relegated to a desk job after that incident. She starts a private investigation business and works alongside Colleen Wing. They also team up with Luke Cage and Iron Fist. She was once roommates with Jean Grey and was one of the 142 registered superheroes who were a part of the Avengers Initiative. She has mad detective skills and is an expert marksman, but is most notably known for her powerful bionic arm, which is upgraded multiple times throughout her story. Her arm has been used to hack and control robots, shoot concussive blasts, produce an energy shield, and even been used as a grappling hook. Number 7. Colleen Wing. Also known as the Lady Samurai, Colleen was raised by her grandfather in Japan, in the mountains of northern Honshu. Her grandfather, Kenji Ozawa, lost all his other children in World War II and trained his surviving grandchild in the arts of the samurai. Colleen lives in New York and was once saved from death by a police officer named Misty Knight, and the two became best friends, later working as private detectives for Nightwing Restorations Inc. She was once kidnapped by Master Khan and brainwashed into killing Iron Fist, but Iron Fist later arrives and frees her from control by bridging their minds. Colleen is quite powerful, able to focus her chi to achieve exceptional strength, or enter a Zen trance, allowing her to heal faster and resist temperature extremes. She even dated Cyclops once, while Jean Grey was presumed dead. Not really sure what she saw in him, but luckily she's saved from that awful romance when Jean Grey returns. Number 6. Night Thrasher. Also known as Dwayne Taylor, this skateboarding super is definitely street. His father was a soldier, part of a military unit that discovered the Temple of Dragon's Breath, home to an evil sorceress named Tai, who has his parents killed using mind control. She clouded Dwayne's mind so that he wouldn't remember who killed his parents, and then she took him in, manipulating him into becoming a weapon against crime. Dwayne is affiliated with the New Warriors, and is definitely a powerful dude. He is an excellent gymnast, acrobat, and martial artist, as well as a skilled hacker and weapons designer. His original costume design included a bulletproof skateboard and a hidden machine gun. He has an epic battle armor suit as well, with a whole bunch of gadgets including a laser sword, napalm gel, smoke capsules, incendiary packs, and more. Number 5. Shang-Chi. Also referred to as Marvel's Bruce Lee, Shang-Chi is a master of Kung Fu. His father was an immortal sorcerer and crime lord named Fu Manchu, and he raised Shang to be a deadly assassin. He trained with various masters, learning alchemy, and even absorbed fighting techniques in his sleep through virtual reality. After his first assignment, however, he realized his father was evil and faked his own death, seeking to take down his father's criminal empire. He was a part of the Marvel Knights, and he later joined the Heroes for Hire. When Spider-Man lost his spider sense, it was Shang-Chi who helped him to train to compensate for it, creating a new fighting style called the Way of the Spider, with short-range attacks targeting nerve clusters and pressure points. Shang is a master fighter who has fought the Iron Fist to a stalemate. He is a skilled marksman, proficient with a variety of weapons, and has full control over his own nervous system. He is also an expert at finding pressure points, expert at philosophy, and a skilled fisherman, showing remarkable patience. He wields a pair of metallic nunchucks designed by Stark that can discharge repulsor blasts upon impact. Number 4. Hitmonkey. You heard me correctly. Hitmonkey lived in the mountains with a clan of monkeys who took in an injured assassin, and the group of monkeys nursed him back to health. Hitmonkey disagreed with this, knowing someone would eventually come to look for the assassin. He studied the assassin's ways and is eventually exiled for becoming violent with his fellow monkeys. Later, a group of soldiers does show up, and Hitmonkey is proven correct. They kill his entire clan and the assassin. Hitmonkey picks up the assassin's pistols and begins a quest for vengeance. Guided by the spirit of the deceased assassin, Hitmonkey goes on an epic crusade with a duffel bag full of guns. At one point, he disguises himself as a young boy, the ring bearer at a wedding. One of his greatest advantages is his enemies refuse to believe a monkey assassin could be real and is coming after them. He has exceptional fighting skills and has near human intellect, definitely smarter than the average monkey. Number 3. The Sentry. Also known as Robert Reynolds, he was a drug addict who one day broke into a lab looking for the good stuff. He accidentally discovers the ultimate drug, however, remnants of the super soldier serum from the war, but the serum is now more powerful than ever. The serum causes him to sort of explode, killing his friend and completely destroying the lab. Then, in classic addict fashion, he finds the guy who was working on the serum and asks, "Can you make me some more?" Project Sentry allowed him to test his powers at their facility, but they couldn't contain his desire to use the powers for greater good. The Sentry eventually teams up with the New Avengers after Electro stages a massive jailbreak and sets about 90 supervillains free. When Carnage shows up and takes the fight to the next level, it's Sentry that grabs Carnage, flies him up into space, and rips him in half. Okay, so maybe Sentry is a little more higher than street level, but not a lot of people know when he started out, he was your typical street level guy, saving cats from trees, stopping bank heists, you name it. And coming at number 2, Wolverine. One of the most tragic and conflicted badasses ever. Wolverine probably should have been on part 1 of this list. Wolverine is a Canadian mutant with an adamantium skeleton and bone claws, a nearly indestructible super soldier. Also known as Logan, he is one of the most prominent members of the X-Men, and possibly one of the most tortured characters in Marvel history. We could honestly do a whole list of ways Wolverine has died. Horribly. Only to be returned thanks to his healing factor. Seriously, Wolverine has even survived an atomic bomb. He has one of the most powerful healing factors ever, and is immune to all contaminants. He has superhuman senses and abilities. Superhuman everything, from sight and smell to speed and strength. Wolverine is one of the world's most skilled trackers because of this. He is also a master martial artist, a weapons expert, and an expert in assassination techniques. And coming in at number 1, Squirrel Girl. First appearing in 1991, her name is Doreen Green. Her story is ridiculous, and I love it. At a science demonstration, she was bitten by a radioactive squirrel. Nah, I'm just messing around. She was actually born with a modification in her genes that gave her squirrel-like abilities, including talking with squirrels. She meets a little critter named Monkey Joe, who encourages her to use her abilities to help people, causing her to fantasize about being a hero and coming up with the alias, the Unbeatable Squirrel Girl. Man, you really gotta be confident to put unbeatable in your name. She ambushes Iron Man one day, like not attacking him, she just shows up, hoping to impress him and become his sidekick, but Iron Man politely declines. Later, he is subdued by Dr. Doom, and Squirrel Girl comes along to rescue him, using her powers to summon a squirrel army which attacks Dr. Doom and his ship, climbing all over the ship, chewing up his wires and stuff. She is a part of the Great Lakes Avengers and has some pretty weird powers, including superhuman jaw strength that allows her to chew through steel in a matter of seconds. She has night vision, superhuman strength, healing factor, and more. She regularly breaks the fourth wall as well and is literally unbeatable, having taken on Thanos, Wolverine, and even Kraven the Hunter in the past.
Coming in at number 10, we have Wildcat.
someone who's been working behind the scenes with heroes for years. He isn't the most famous of the street level brawlers, but he has trained the likes of Black Canary, Batman, and some of the Robins, and many other heroes. He was a champion boxer who was framed for the murder of one of his friends. For a while the police were after him, but eventually he was able to sneak away and don the mask of Wildcat. Through this he was able to track down the man responsible for framing him for murder and clear his name. After this he would work with the Justice League for decades, bringing up some of the best heroes of all time. Next on the list we have Jean-Paul Valley, someone who wanted to be Batman but didn't really believe in the whole "I'm not gonna kill people" thing. Jean-Paul Valley was trained by the Order, a spin-off group from the Knights Templar, who has trained some of the most dangerous people in history. Jean-Paul Valley was commissioned by Batman to take the mantle of Dark Knight because Bruce Wayne's back was broken, but this guy took it a little too far and would brutalize every criminal that he found. Eventually Batman had to come back and take him out. Since then Jean-Paul has gone through a ton of iterations, even becoming a Black Lantern at one point, but now he has fallen into the role of hero, and anyone who has been trained by Batman is a serious force on the streets. Next on the list we got Catman. What would Batman look like if he had a feline theme? Or what would Catwoman look like if she was born a dude? Well, it might look a lot like Catman. At first glance this might look like the weakest attempt at making a Batman clone. You literally changed one letter, but it makes sense because Catman actually started out as a villain. He had a massive white tiger named Rasputin and seemed like he wanted to beat Batman at his own game. The guy has amazing tracking skills with a keen sense of smell. He is a world-class martial artist, he's an Olympic level athlete, and he has a utility belt just like Batman. I feel like this guy might have a love-hate relationship with Batman. But then the character kind of fell off. There was an era where the writers turned him into a washed up nobody who was overweight and lost his drive to be any sort of villain. Then he bounced back and was revitalized into an anti-hero, taking out crime on his terms, and he even became a member of the mysterious group known as the Secret Six. This guy had one hell of a comeback story, and I forgot to mention that he also has razor-tipped gauntlets to simulate claws. He is really committing to the bit. I love it. Also, if this dude punches you with those things, it's an instant kill, probably. Next on the list we have Richard Dragon. Back in the 1970s, martial arts were all the rage. Bruce Lee made everyone want to start kung fu fighting, as the famous song says. Well, this spread into almost every form of media, with both DC and Marvel creating the respective versions of martial arts masters. For DC, one of those characters was Richard Dragon. Richard starts off as a thief. He doesn't want to hurt anyone, but you know what? You gotta pay the bills. Well, one day he's confronted by a security guard while trying to pull off a heist, and the dude manhandles him, throws him around like a little baby. And then he has Richard on the ground before he can think twice about trying to escape. Luckily for him, the security guard saw the good in Richard and offered him to come train and learn the ways of kung fu rather than going to jail. A shot at redemption. Over the next few years, Richard would train and learn the ways of martial arts and become a master. Through this process, it would be revealed that he truly does have a heart of gold, and he only turns to using his honed martial abilities when he has no other options. Next on the list we got Lady Shiva, a story of revenge turned to anguish, turned into a life of fighting crime. Such are the struggles of a hero. People love to get revenge on those who wronged them. Lady Shiva grew up thinking that the previous hero on this list, Richard Dragon, killed her sister. She hated his guts, and she knew that there was one way that she could quell the beast inside her that wanted revenge, and that was getting revenge. I think you guys could have figured that one out yourself. Well, Lady Shiva, also known as Sandra Woosin, would dedicate her life to training in martial arts so she could one day be strong enough to take down the man who killed her sister. Eventually, she was one of the most deadly martial artists around and set up a trap for Richard Dragon, but things didn't go as planned. They got into a scuffle and Richard was able to reveal to her that he never killed her sister. In a way, this kind of broke her. Her whole purpose was to kill this dude, and now she had no reason to kill him. So she decided to team up with him and take on the world of crime and become a deadly crime fighter. Next on the list we got Helena Wayne. There have been a few renditions of Huntress over the years, and everyone has their own favorite, but I think mine would have to be Helena Wayne. Because something I really love about comics is when you spend years building something up and give fans exactly what they want. Like in Kingdom Come, you have all the versions of Flash formed into one Super Flash. That's huge fan service, and I feel the same way about Helena Wayne. She is the daughter of both Catwoman and Batman. I mean, firstly, it was about time those two lovebirds hitched up and broke the sexual tension that had been building between them for years. But on top of all of that, how do you make a more badass person than by mixing two of the best street level heroes who have ever lived? Helena Wayne, of course, sports the famous Huntress crossbow and rides around on a killer motorcycle. Next on the list, we got Green Arrow, similar to Batman, but way more of a playboy. Oliver Queen was a multi-billionaire who didn't care about anyone but himself. He wanted to party and rub elbows with other elites and fill every one of his sinful desires. Then, one of his co-workers tried to kill him after stealing $14 million from him. That sucks. The dude threw him in the ocean, and Ollie managed to make it to a deserted island, and he might have died if it wasn't for his Boy Scout training. The dude knew how to survive in the wilderness and was able to find a broken down generator and use the parts to make a makeshift bow. Luckily for him, he was a skilled archer, and this would lead to him being able to hunt. The wild part of this story is that living off this island was probably the best time of his life, until he found a village that was killed by some drug smugglers. He then took out the smugglers and turned them over to the police. This was how he got his start in hero work. He would then come back to the world that he used to know and become one of the most powerful crime fighters ever, and team up with some of the best members of the Justice League, and even become a high-ranking member of the Justice League. Next on the list, we got Jason Todd. Jason Todd, also known as the Red Hood, didn't have the easiest transition into the Bat family. He was a troubled kid forced to steal just to survive, who was scooped up by Batman and brought into a life of hero work. Being the new Robin should have been the best thing that ever happened to him, right? Well, not true. He died. And it was something that the fans voted for, which is kind of messed up. But after the Jason Todd Robin was killed, we see someone show up on the scene who knows many of Batman's tricks, loves to use guns, and goes by the name the Red Hood. Who could this be? Well, it was Jason Todd coming back from the dead. Eventually, he would regain his sanity and stop trying to kill Batman, but he would keep his cool new getup. With Jason being the least skilled in acrobatics compared to the other members of the Bat family, he relies on grit and brute force to take down his enemies, and every now and again he'll pull out a gun, which is something I've always thought would work well with the utility belt. Next on the list, we have Black Canary, the wielder of the famous Canary Cry. That is one of the most powerful superhero moves ever, able to take down some of the strongest adversaries and even destroy entire buildings. She is one of the strongest street level crime fighters around. Not every street level crime fighter is able to work their way up to being a member of the Justice League, and she comes from a line of people who want to see justice in the world. Dina's mother was the original Black Canary, and even though her mom didn't want her daughter running around trying to fight crime, because what parent wants their kid to go into a line of work that has very little pay and a high chance of them getting murdered, but she did it anyways and became one of the most famous members of the DC universe. Also, her father was a cop, so crime fighting is really in her blood. It wouldn't make sense if Dina didn't have the urge to clean up the streets. Outside of her insanely strong sonic scream, she is also a very skilled martial artist. She was trained by the famous Wildcat. And to add a little extra emotion to the relationship between her and Wildcat, he was also the one who trained Dina's mom. He loves to produce some badass crime fighting ladies. And number one on the list is Mr. Terrific. You can be a billionaire like Green Arrow, and that's enough to be a great hero. But what if you're a billionaire and one of the smartest people who ever lived, and also one of the best athletes ever? Mr. Terrific, also known as Michael Holt, is one of the smartest men alive. Understanding quantum physics at the age of 6, he's an elite level athlete, winning multiple gold medals at the Olympics. He has more money than God. Well, he decided to use his knowledge and power to become one of the strongest street level heroes with a list of gadgets to rival Batman. This dude can turn invisible. He has magnetic balls that fly around and knock people out. He can fly, create holograms, create force fields. He's incredibly skilled with ballistic weapons. He's also good at hand-to-hand combat. He's got a keen eye for danger, and did I mention he has enough money to buy bottle service until the world turns to dust? Yeah, this dude is legit.
Number 10, Catman. Catman is a hero who does not get enough love. He was originally a villain until Gail Simone flipped the script with his character, redeeming him by having him join the Secret Six. He'd later go on to become their leader. Catman was once the enemy of Batman. His power set currently is also connected to his kinda cat-like mantle, with him being believed to have 9 lives and enhanced sense of smell, at least in the Prime Earth continuity. Traditionally, some of his powers in the New Earth continuity were connected to his suit, but regardless, he has always been a gifted hunter. hunter, fighter, acrobat, and in that previous continuity was also considered a genius, which so many people in the DC universe are. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, please go check out our newest channel, Most Amazing Top 10 Anime. Number 9. Ricochet. Ricochet is a really interesting hero. He's actually a mutant, but has also been spotted as a one-time member at the Avengers Academy. He also is a former member of the Slingers, which was where he was first introduced in their eponymous series in the 1990s. While the Slingers would later disband, they have since returned in the comics, with Ricochet being reunited with his former partner Dusk, who believed he was being held against his will when he simply had taken up a job with Beyond and was participating in experiments involving interdimensional tech. Ricochet's mutant power grants him enhanced agility and dexterity, which also lends to him having a power similar to Spider Sense, where he can basically feel when he's in danger, and also makes him a skilled marksman as well. Number 8. Wildcat. You know Black Canary? You know Catwoman? You know Batman? You know Superman? Well then in a way, you know Wildcat. Ted Grant is Wildcat and he has trained all of those superheroes. If you've seen them go to blows with the villain, there's likely that you're seeing some of his skills on display there as a teacher and a boxer. Ted Grant was framed for the death of one of his opponents as a boxer years ago, and that's what has inspired him to become a fighter for justice, becoming a hero in his own right who served on the Justice Society of America. Number 7. Hornet. Hobie Brown is a hero who does not get enough love, not by a long shot. He recently appeared alongside the Slingers in the Amazing Spider-Man series during the Beyond event. He appeared in a side story that was featured in one of the Point Bays, or perhaps I should say the Point Bs, since that's short for Beyond. I still like saying Point Bay though. Hobie is known for his genius intellect, although he initially thought a life of crime was the right way to go with that, adopting the identity of the Prowler on Earth 616, but Spider-Man was quick to encourage his reform, even giving him work impersonating Spider-Man to protect Peter Parker's secret identity. He initially used his genius to build his first suit, which was where he basically got his powers from, possessing, no superpowers himself. He has since also built his newest suit for his heroic mantle of Hornet, and honestly, I'm really hoping we get to see more of him and the Slingers in the comics soon. The Slingers are so cool. Number 6. Huntress. For this version of Huntress, we are focusing on Helena Bertinelli, who unbeknownst to her had grown up in a mafia household. When a hit was put on her family, she was one of the only people that survived, and really only survived by accident. She trained in the old country of Sicily, being taken in by her father and uncle, but eventually learned the truth of her own family's involvement with the mafia, and learned that the mafia was not really good but a source of corruption and evil. When she returned to Gotham to visit a family as a teenager over the holidays, she witnessed Batman attack her family, and rightfully so, she thought. She didn't really like her family. Inspired by him and the fear that he created, she decided to follow in his footsteps and become a vigilante with her life devoted to wiping out the mafia in order to get her revenge. Number 5. Elektra. Elektra is often thought of as more of a villain in the comics, and more of a dead villain really, since well, she's mostly famous for kinda dying and thereby breaking Daredevil's heart, as she was his lover, his former lover. In fact, she was the first love that Daredevil ever really lost, which has kinda become his thing, although even before she died she was kinda lost to Matt Murdock in terms of their love story anyways. Elektra was pulled to the side of darkness but would later return in the comics and has since turned to the side of good, even walking in Matt's footsteps and donning his cowl, becoming herself a version of Daredevil. Number 4. The Question. The Question has been asked by a few different people over the years, and honestly the Question is a character that probably doesn't get enough love on this channel. Whether we're talking about Vic Sage, who randomly lives again despite having previously died from cancer, or Renee Montoya, his GCPD detective who was his former love interest, who was later revealed to be gay and then later followed in her mentor Sage's footsteps, or the other one, the nameless one, who was kind of less cool than either of the other iterations in my opinion. The Question is an interesting character. While things got a little too magical with the newest version of the character, I've always loved that the original Question was both a master detective but also somewhat mystical as well, having much knowledge of things both spiritual and supernatural gathered through his travels. While not particularly well known for his fighting style, Vic did train Renee Montoya, who was already a pretty good fighter, being a trained boxer and police officer who also became a skilled martial artist, and even at one point managed to hold her own for a period of time in a fight against Lady Shiva, with Shiva even remarking on how the fight was more interesting than she initially expected. Which, from Lady Shiva, hey, that's a compliment. Number 3. Moon Knight. Moon Knight is a hero who many people now have more respect for thanks to his appearance in the MCU in his own series, Moon Knight. Here he is depicted as a man divided who brings all sides of himself together to take on god-level threats. If that isn't strong, I do not know what is. But even in the comics, Moon Knight has always had this potential really. While street level in terms of the types of fights that he generally picks across personas, he also has an origin and background steeped in the supernatural and in mysticism. A lot of people think of Moon Knight as kind of just like a crazy guy who's really good at beating people up, but in reality he potentially gains power from the moon due to his connection to the, as of now, confirmed to be real god known as Khonshu. Aside from that, Moon Knight has also literally had to fight gods, even having to fight against his own god during Age of Khonshu. This likely has dampened his power source somewhat, as Khonshu is currently locked away, but Moon Knight still remains a powerful hero regardless. Number 2. Batwoman. Batwoman doesn't get hyped a lot on our channel unless we're talking about the Bat family or queer representation in comics, I feel. At least speaking for my own list, and when I tend to talk about Batwoman, but she deserves to be hyped just for being a powerful hero in her own right. Kate Kane is the cousin of Bruce Wayne, and I just realized that their names rhyme. Kate Kane, Bruce Wayne. What the heck? She was kicked out of the military for being gay and ended up deciding to put her skills and abilities to good use as a vigilante instead. What's even more impressive is that although Kate only ever wanted to serve after losing her mom and her sister, she actually admits to being gay as opposed to hiding it, which is what causes her to have to leave the military. She couldn't bring herself to lie about it, and honestly, this shows one of Kate's greatest strengths and most prominent traits: honor. Kate Kane is a hero even skilled fighters like Cassandra Cain look up to, and she's proven to be skilled enough to take out an unsuspecting Batgirl, aka Barbara Gordon, which is no easy feat. Barbara Gordon is a pretty impressive fighter. Number 1. Danny Rand. Or Daniel Rand if we're being formal. While I do sometimes like to poke fun at Danny Rand, the fact remains that he is insanely OP, especially for being a street level superhero. While no longer the Iron Fist currently in the comics, Danny Rand for a long time was the guy you thought of when you thought the words Iron Fist. He's defeated dragons! Even without the Iron Fist power though, he is still a master martial artist who could probably only be rivaled in terms of his skill by the likes of someone else just as gifted, someone like another deadly martial artist superhero like Shang-Chi. Rand has complete control of his nervous system and can also withstand pain and achieve a sense of control over his body using meditation techniques. His senses are so great and attuned that he doesn't even need to be able to see his opponent to fight them, and he has been said to be a master of chi.
In at 10, Punisher. Lieutenant Francis, or Frank Castle, also known as the Punisher, is a former Italian-American US Marine who served in multiple tours of duty, including the Synagogue War. This bravery in combat earned him the Bronze Star, Silver Star, and 4 Purple Hearts. Tragedy struck though when his wife Maria and children Lisa and Frank Jr. were killed after witnessing a mafia hit. Consumed by grief and driven by vengeance, Frank transformed into the Punisher, sporting a distinctive head skull on his chest, and he made it his life's mission to eradicate organized crime in all of its forms. Armed with cutting-edge weaponry, he wages a relentless war against criminals as just his own self, like a lone wolf. Drawing upon his combat skills, expertise in guerrilla and urban warfare, and sharp destructive tactics, the Punisher adopts very hostile means of taking out the mafia and hunts down those who he deems responsible for eliminating his family. But yeah, dude's a dark hero unless he's having food fights with Archie Andrews, which actually happened. In at 9, Black Widow. Natasha Romanoff's early life is the subject of varying accounts. One version tells of a fire in Stalingrad in 1928 that consumed the building where infant Natasha and her mother resided. In a desperate act, Natasha's mother threw her out the window to safety, where she was caught by a Russian soldier named Ivan Petrovich. Ivan became her steadfast guardian and foster father throughout her life. Another account places the fire during the Battle of Stalingrad in autumn of 1942. While under Ivan's protection, Natasha was abducted by Baron von Strucker and taken to the Hand, an organization of assassins in Madripoor. However, it was revealed that Natasha had been working undercover, following orders from an undisclosed source. Her abduction served as a ruse to infiltrate the Hand and assassinate their leader, the Onin. Logan, also known as Wolverine, intervened and killed the Onin instead, simultaneously freeing Captain America, but Yeah, which is weird because then Natasha would then work with Captain America, despite being, yeah, it's a whole thing. The timelines are weird when you have super soldier and like Wolverine powers and you don't really age. In at 8, Black Cat. Felicia Hardy's father, Walter Hardy, was a renowned cat burglar who instilled in his daughter's mindset a sense of never settling for mediocrity. He encouraged her to pursue her passions wholeheartedly, urging her to aim for being a basketball player rather than just a cheerleader if it was her true passion. During her freshman year in college, Felicia attended a party that turned into a harrowing experience where she was almost attacked by a drunken fellow student in a bathroom. Fortunately, another student named Ryan intervened, saving her from the assault, and from that, Felicia and Ryan formed a close bond, spending a lot of time together. However, the friendship took a dark turn when Ryan insisted that it was time to take their relationship to a different level, disregarding Felicia's objections. Refusing to be a victim again, Felicia rejected the idea and made a decision to seek revenge against her assailant, even if it meant facing dire consequences. She dedicated herself to intense training in various combat techniques and acrobatics, setting aside her studies, and then after months of preparation, she embarked on a path of vengeance driven by her determination to bring justice to her attacker. And while she is sometimes depicted as a villain, she does often help Spider-Man when it's for the greater good. But if there's any money to be made in it, Felicia will typically want to make the money. But I mean, I guess I can understand that. We love a girl with spunk. And it's 7, Elektra. Elektra spent years working as a bounty hunter and hired assassin. During a contract in New York City, she discovered that the blind adventurer of Daredevil was actually Matt Murdock. They then joined forces to combat Bullseye, who was suffering from a deteriorating mental state caused by a tumor. While Daredevil did disapprove of Elektra's profession, their connection remained strong, and after escaping from Pleasant Hill, Elektra sought redemption for the lives that she had taken by applying to rejoin S.H.I.E.L.D. She aimed to cleanse her conscience and make amends, and her initial assignment involved taking charge of Phil Coulson's former team. Yes, that Phil Coulson. As a part of her duties, she was tasked with apprehending Coulson for his interference with Captain Marvel's plans regarding the Inhuman profiler Ulysses Kane and his predictive justice. Elektra's involvement also aided S.H.I.E.L.D. director Maria Hill, yes, Robin Scherbatsky, in uncovering a mole within Coulson's team, who was eventually revealed to be Leo Fitz. And at 6, Hawkeye. Clint Barton, also known as Hawkeye, is a highly skilled marksman and archer from America, where he started his journey initially as a circus performer and minor supervillain, but eventually became a valued member of the Avengers. Despite occasional conflicts with the team, Clint always returned to fight alongside his fellow Avengers against any threat, cause, you know, yeah. Dude kinda has like a Robin-esque origin story too. Being raised in a circus and trained by criminals, Clint still overcame a troubled youth to become one of Earth's greatest heroes. He is widely recognized for his exceptional mastery of a bow and arrow, displaying extreme precision and never really seeming to miss unless he means to. Throughout his career, he formed a strong friendship with Black Widow, aka Natasha Romanoff, and was married to fellow superhero Mockingbird, with whom he co-founded the West Coast Avengers. But I guess they don't film in Vancouver. Haha, it's a joke. Halfway through into number 5, Moon Knight. Mark Spector, operating as the vigilante Moon Knight, had a remarkable journey. Once a mercenary left for dead in the desert, he was granted a second chance when he was resurrected by the moon god Khonshu. Becoming Khonshu's champion and high priest, Moon Knight took on the role of a nocturnal avenger, safeguarding those who traversed in the shadows. However, Mark's life is not without complexity. He grapples with dissociative identity disorder, with different personalities such as the wealthy Stephen Grant and the taxi driver Jake Lockley. During his early days, Moon Knight fought crime with the assistance of a network of allies, including his loyal friend Frenchie Dutchamp, the resourceful Bertrand Crawley, and Port of Diner owner Gina Landers. While Mark mostly operates as a lone crusader, he has been associated with various superhero teams throughout his career. He served as a member of the West Coast Avengers, the Secret Avengers, and the Heroes for Hire. But yeah, Moon Knight is kind of a dope thing that was actually pretty niche until the series came out anyway. And at 4, Deadpool. Yeah. Okay, you knew this was gonna happen. Wade's recollections of his childhood are filled with conflicting memories. At times, he remembers his father abandoning his pregnant mother, leading to her directing anger towards him until Wade grew up and started hurting her instead. Or on the other hand, he's also recalled his mother passing away when he was 5, leaving him in the care of his father, who was a military officer. Nonetheless, Wade's account of his father being an absent figure who told bad jokes and left him with his mother when he was young kinda contradicted earlier memories, but yeah, it's Deadpool. well, you can't really believe anything he says, but you also kind of have to believe everything he says, otherwise you have nothing. It's kind of like FNAF in that way. But his mother, in that version, sought solace in humor, alcohol, and home shopping networks. Kind of like every aunt on TV ever. Wade believed that running away from home would spare his mother from spending what little money they had on him, but in a surprising twist, it was eventually revealed that Wade's parents were still together and living in Canada. They had preserved his room just as he had left it, but upon returning as an adult, Wade failed to recognize the house, his parents, or his own room. So yeah, that's complicated. That sounds like a Disney Channel original movie. I'm not even kidding. I feel like this is actually a Disney Channel movie plot. And at 3, Captain America. Steve Rogers, also known as Captain America, the first Avenger, faced numerous health issues that led to his rejection by the US Army during World War II. However, he seized the opportunity to volunteer for Project Rebirth, a program that administered the super soldier serum developed by Dr. Abraham Erskine. This transformative serum greatly enhanced his frail physique, something that I could use, elevating him to the peak of human physicality. Known as the Sentinel of Liberty, Captain America fought alongside his closest ally Bucky Barnes and the Invaders, aiding the Allies in achieving victory in the war. However, his fate took a turn when he was lost at sea and remained frozen in suspended animation for several decades. I don't know how that could happen in an ocean, but okay, that's fine. Suspension of belief, it's comics. Eventually, he thawed out in the modern era and then continued his valiant struggle alongside a new team of allies, the Avengers. Captain America's unwavering loyalty lies not with politicians or governments, but with the timeless principles of freedom, equality, and justice that embody the American dream, which is kind of contradictory because that means that he would be loyal to the American government because it's the American dream, but oh well, I digress. But yeah, he has superpowers and he's a street hero apparently, so there you go, blame the wiki not. Penultimately, in at number 2, Spider-Man. Yep, Spider-Man's on this list too. Spider-Man, often known as a lone vigilante, has become an integral part of the superhero community and has forged strong alliances with various teams like the Fantastic Four and Avengers. Along his journey, he's faced formidable adversaries including Doc Ock, Electro, Kraven the Hunter, Mysterio, Venom, Green Goblin, who's obviously his arch nemesis who actually resulted in the death of Gwen Stacy. But in his civilian life, Peter's just kind of a dude. He's not really supposed to be that handsome, he's not cool, he's not fun, but he does actually have a support network that includes Mary Jane Watson, Harry Osborn, Flash Thompson, and at times J. Jonah Jameson, despite him literally trashing Spider-Man at all times, but again, he doesn't know, so it's a toss-up. But following the ups and downs of his startup company Parker Industries, Peter had to balance his Spider-Man duties with returning to college, all while becoming the target of a malevolent entity known as Kindred, which tormented him relentlessly. But again, somehow, the dude has to pull his punches, otherwise he'll just kill someone by flicking them, and he's considered a street hero because he fights thugs, I guess. Dude's been to space. Dude has had the power cosmic. How is he a street level villain or superhero? Whatever. It doesn't matter. How is he street level anything? Whatever. Moving on. And finally, in at number 1, Daredevil. Matt Murdock, blinded as a child but gifted with heightened senses, fights for the underprivileged in New York's Hell's Kitchen as a zealous lawyer during the day and as the agile and skilled martial artist Daredevil at night. Raised by his father, an aging boxer, Matt was encouraged to pursue education and intellectual pursuits rather than relying on physical strength. However, after witnessing his father's death at the hands of gangsters who demanded that he throw a fight, Matt swears to fight injustice both in the courtroom and out of it. Initially portrayed as a swashbuckling, carefree adventurer, Daredevil was later reimagined by Frank Miller in the 1980s as a tormented hero who suffers a series of tragedies. Miller introduced the character of Elektra, Matt's first and greatest love, who ultimately became an assassin and was killed by Daredevil's enemy Bullseye. But despite his pain and suffering, Matt continues to fight for justice, which is a good thing. But also, I realized this recently, Daredevil and Matt Murdock being blind and Superman's glasses are the same disguise. There you go. I've ruined your day. And if you want to know more about things that are probably going to ruin your day, be sure you click on the video that's popping up on screen. What a good pitch!